It is Tuesday, July 29th. Some of you will continue to see some of the worst heat over the next couple of days, at least today, Tuesday, into Wednesday. But look at the changes that are on the way. We're going to explore this today. We're above average. These are temperature anomalies, departures from average. Clearly another warm day in some areas all the way through Thursday, but look at this cool air that starts to settle in over the northern plains, the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, even into the Northeast. And we could be looking at temperatures 10 degrees below average or more across the central plains. And now we're going to see more rain across parts of Oklahoma, so that will keep your temperatures back. But the further north you go, much drier air and some cooler air moving in. And look at this. Temperatures even at the Carolinas could get close to being 5 to 10 degrees below average. And now, as we head towards Sunday into the weekend, all the way down to the Gulf Coast, a decent relief of temperatures. And we're trying to get cloudy, a little cool here along the east face of the mountains here of the Appalachians. Something to watch, but overall, look at the trend. I don't think it's going to last, though. I think we're back warm again as we head toward the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th. Maybe not as warm as what we're seeing now. Is this the worst of summer? Arguably, maybe, but I think there's more heat waves to come. Maybe not as intense, maybe not as widespread, but I certainly don't think summer's over yet. Hey, this is just a little extra thing, and then we'll get into today's forecast, kind of the outlook. As we look toward winter, I'm not a big fan of long-range forecast. I get it. I love it when the comments light it up and go, you can't get it even right tomorrow. How are you going to guess 6 months from now? Totally get that. Fair enough. Fair point. But here's the difference. I mean, by the way, guys, forecast models all we have, but some of the things in the trends that you look at, you can't just look at the forecast models, but I also look at things like the ocean temperature. This is pretty interesting to see here across the northern Pacific. A lot of warm water. What does that mean? Well, in my mind, that means we're going to get a screaming jet stream moving into the Pacific Northwest. And what does that do? Well, sometimes when you see this type of setup, it ends up cutting off some of the colder air that moves into North America, because if you got all this warm water here off of Alaska, and then you end up just locking that cold air around the North Pole. So will we end up seeing that again? I don't know. Especially if you get that cold air developing here across Alaska, Western Canada, a lot of warm surface water here, strong jet stream. Could be something to watch going into the winter. I know I'm already looking at those kind of things. I'll share that from time to time on this channel, especially as we start to build that Siberian snowpack. That's something I always like to look at too. That sometimes can be a telltale sign of how that cold air is building. All right, no cold air today. We are looking at the possibility of some severe thunderstorms across the central plains, back into parts of Iowa too, as far east as Chicago. Here's the deal. We got a front draped through here. There's not a lot of winds below that 500 millibar level or mid-level of the atmosphere. So these storms may just pulse up, and if they start to line up, we may end up with some sort of thunderstorm complex that moves off to the east as we move through the day today, being driven by its own cold pool pushing out ahead of it. So we'll look at that here in the video. Ongoing thunderstorms through the morning are starting to weaken as they move into Illinois. These will fall apart, and then we'll refire things up this afternoon across parts of South Dakota again, into Nebraska, and then there goes those storms. Again, firing up along our front. Some of this could bring some really heavy rain too, and they could last into the evening hours and stretch as far east as Des Moines, maybe even into parts of northern Missouri. Some really heavy rain possible across southern parts of Minnesota, again with these storms today. Otherwise, relatively dry further to the south across Texas, Oklahoma, and an easterly fetch here across the Gulf Coast states. That's bringing in some moisture, showers, southern Mississippi, Louisiana. You can see that pinwheeling through this area, and then the showers start to move south as we head into Thursday as our front starts to get a little bit closer. Look at these temperatures. Air temperatures this afternoon approaching triple digits again across Kansas. I do want to show you the feels like temperature. And by the way, it's a little bit cooler the further north you go. You're already starting to feel that across parts of Minnesota, also into Wisconsin. But look at these temperatures this afternoon when you combine the actual air temperature with the moisture, feeling like 110 to 115 in some of these areas. And it doesn't help that you're now entering that season in the Corn Belt where you're developing all of that evapotranspiration from the corn, putting out that moisture, and it's hot. It's just not helping All right, as we move toward Wednesday, though, at least we do start to bring some drier air in from the north. You can start to see that here. Heat indices dropping back into the 70s. I'm showing the apparent temperature again, just so you get the idea. Another day into the triple digits on Wednesday. But look at Thursday. Thursday's going to start to look a lot different the further north you go. I don't think we get rid of the heat in the south, but certainly across Missouri and maybe even as far south as Arkansas. We might get rid of the triple digit heat indices back into the 80s, even North Mississippi. And some of that cool air, unfortunately, I'm sorry, along the Gulf Coast and Florida, you're not going to get rid of it. But feeling much nicer the further north you go. The end is near, at least regarding the heat. Further to the east today, let's look at what will develop this afternoon. I think you're going to get these differential heating-driven thunderstorms here along the mountains here from West Virginia down into western Virginia, North Carolina, maybe even the upstate of South Carolina. And your sea breeze storms will kick in across the coast. Otherwise, relatively dry across the northeast. We could see a few showers in northern New England. And then there are the storms back across the upper Midwest and the Midwest that will likely develop into the afternoon and evening. And, a better chance of rain today across parts of Georgia and southern Alabama, maybe than what we've seen over the last couple of days, as this disturbance, this low, moves across the Gulf Coast states. And then as we head into now Wednesday, your front getting closer. Look at the rain chances going up across Michigan, down into Indiana, Illinois. So a better chance of rain, more clouds, certainly helping it feel a little better, a little cooler. And then the showers move into the northeast. A decent bulk of rain with this disturbance riding along our front as we head into Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening. And do we end up with more severe weather further south? To be determined as we get a little bit closer to Thursday. Here's a look at your air temperatures today. I'm going to let this roll out. We'll likely climb up into the 90s in many areas, at least into the upper 80s. The only relief would be the showers across the southeast and also the mid-Atlantic. Another hot day on Wednesday, but here comes that relief. You start to see it creeping in from the north. These are actual air temperatures, and then I'm going to show you the feels like temperature combined with that humidity, but numbers on the way down. And right there, look at that. Blue showing up into the northeast. We may drop into the low 50s, possibly 40s by the weekend. In the mountains, though, not everybody. Heat indices, ugh. Yes, just look. Triple digits again today. Further south with that, at least that 90-degree line with the feels like temperature. And look, a big difference for millions of you as we head toward Thursday and then into Friday. We push that well to the south. And then into Saturday, places even like the upstate of South Carolina, maybe even Columbia, you may not see a heat index above 80. Cross your fingers and hope for the best. And much nicer with this type of setup. All right, across the west, showers start to increase along this line. You can see all that moisture streaming north into parts of New Mexico, Colorado, and even across northern California, parts of Oregon. We've got this low off the coast spinning. That's bringing in some moisture, really interacting with the terrain here. So we'll see more showers, maybe even a few rumbles of thunder across parts of eastern Oregon, Nevada, and into parts of northern California. And then things pinwheeling back to the northwest. So more rain showers here into Washington and in Oregon. Another hot day across the southwest. I mean, it's a dry heat, not necessarily as, it may actually feel cooler in Phoenix, Arizona than it's going to feel maybe today across parts of the Ohio River Valley and into the Mississippi River Valley when you combine that heat and humidity. I promise you, I would take 110 in Phoenix all day long over 95 in Meridian, Mississippi with a dew point of 78. It's just going to feel better. That evaporation on your skin, that evaporative cooling, at least you've got that going across the west. All right, it's definitely going to get hotter, I think, though, as we move through the week across parts of the southwest. Otherwise, not a lot of precipitation out here. Okay, that's a quick look at what's going on today in the next couple of days. If you're new, a lot of you aren't subscribers, so I hope you'll consider coming back. We'll see you next time.